Pachavoa. I see a lot of familiar faces with us here today. But for those of you who don't know me, my name's Gianni Dugulescu, and I'm very grateful to be able to share my testimony and share with y'all how I came to Christ. So, like many of you here, I also was raised in a very Christian family, a very Christian environment, but as a teenager, I took a different path. At around 16 years old, I ended up becoming an atheist. So I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in Christ or the resurrection or the Bible. I definitely did not believe in miracles. And most crucially, I did not believe that life had any inherent meaning or purpose. On top of all that, I also believed that Christianity was this oppressive evil that shackled its followers, that enslaved their minds and forced them to kowtow to a being that they couldn't see, they couldn't interact with in any way, shape, or form. Now, the irony of that is I had nothing to show for it as an atheist. I noticed the lives of the Christians around me. I noticed the lives they lived was, with such kindness, with such holiness, with such moral goodness. And more so, I saw how happy they were. They were fulfilled. They lived life with this divine energy, so to speak. I, on the other hand, here I was totally free. I had no rules. I did not have to answer to anybody. And yet, I was anxious. I was aimless, quite miserable. Especially going into college, that was not a pleasant state that I was in at all. And everyone else, all the Christians that I thought were enslaved, here they were living the most fulfilling, the most happy lives of all. In the meantime, I read a lot of books. I listened to a lot of debates, and I learned a lot about the Christian faith. I learned a lot about philosophy, science, all the different arguments, all the different ways people try to prove or disprove the existence of God, Christianity, the whole works. And I did a lot of thinking. Now, my conversion was not a sudden road to Damascus type of experience. It was a very gradual process. It happened during a lot of deep thought, thinking a lot about what I've learned, and also thinking about my own heart and my own self in the midst of all of that. And throughout this process, there were several small seeds that were planted that gradually grew and brought me here today by the grace of God. There were a few things that I realized that led me to turn my life to Christ and convert to Christianity. So, one, I realized that my atheism was just as dogmatic and just as unreasonable as I thought the religious people were. I thought as an atheist, I thought that atheists were somehow unique they were uniquely immune to bias, that they were the enlightened ones and all the the believers are just, they just want to believe, because it's comfortable. Furthermore, my worldview prevented me from seeing the value of the actual evidence for Christianity, for Christ. Right? Because if I don't believe that miracles can happen, then whatever evidence that comes up I would naturally dismiss as some natural occurrence. So it definitely required this intellectual humility to see the true power of these arguments that I learned. That was the first thing. The second thing that I realized is Christianity is not about dodging punishment. I used to think of God as, this very, very strict dungeon keeper or jail keeper who would, toss me in a fiery dungeon, and thrash me within an inch of my life forever and ever if I didn't comply to his rules, his standards, his will. Instead, I realized that Christianity is about being rescued from my evil, sinful nature. Looking at the lives of the believers and how much goodness in the righteousness that they lived, more and more I desired to partake in that goodness. I wanted to be transformed, in a new creation, headed towards that holy perfection that Christ reflected. And so for the first time in my life, I sought after Christ not for the punishment that I could avoid, but for the freedom that I could receive. And then the third thing that I realized, and this is the most crucial one, is that in order to escape this evil nature, I could not do it by my own efforts. None of us can. That's why God had to become a man in order to pave the way for me, for all of us, to receive that grace and that process of transforming into a holy person. Christ is the only solution to that problem, and that is why I decided to become a Christian. And this time, I am so thankful for this grace that I received. My life has already been transformed so profoundly by Christ, and the best part, that's just the beginning, right? And I wouldn't trade it for anything else, not for 1 second, not 1 millisecond. Some final words. There may be some of you here today that are in a similar place as me. There might be some of you, especially younger people here, that might not be sure if it's all true. God might seem absent, but remember that God gave us not just revelation in His Word, but He also gave us revelation in nature. Right? Anyone can see the handiwork of God. Right? The heavens declare the glory of God. And if there are any parents here that maybe have children that are in a similar place as I am, remember that God works by His own timeline. It does require patience. Mom and Dad can testify to that firsthand. But if God could persuade me, an aggressive atheist, someone who thought Christianity was evil, if God can persuade me, he can do it to anybody. Thank you.